Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on January 30th, 2019, and it is 1700 in the afternoon. Said he, coughing. Eastern Time on, well, as I said, January 30th, 2019. God bless us everywhere. Well, everyone and everywhere, for that matter. And join me while I take my psyllium husk for my diverticular disease. Well, we've been between -9 and -2 and -1 today. -2 right now. It was -5 about 2 hours ago. But I think it's going to go back down. I guess tonight's going to be the really cold night. And then stay pretty much cold through the first half of tomorrow, Thursday, and then, sort of gradually warm up into the teens and 20s. Well, teens, anyway. But take what you can get and be grateful as long as the power stays on. Dear God, keep the power on. So that's sort of the imperative right now. Now, the latest Raccoon report is this. I may or may not have heard a couple of little thumps and bumps last night, but no little scritchy, scratchy, scritchy. There was no, it wasn't like, the guys scratching around or roaming around up there. Okay. Today, well, I normally don't hear much during the daylight hours, but sometimes you hear like a thump. No, but when the weather gets really cold like this, you can hear. I mean, you hear all sorts of things happening in the house that you normally don't hear. Well, at least you used to do where I grew up. The house would go pop or crack, and if you have, if you had to go out at night and take a leak, which, I generally did when I was studying downstairs, rather than have to go up the stairs of death and disturb my parents and sister when they're in, Now, admittedly, I had to sleep in my parents' bedroom, but I didn't want to bother them more than I had to. I'd go out, and it might be like 5 degrees, and you'd hear crack or pop. And now we had a lot of 5-gallon cans that we'd buy hydraulic fluid and oil in it, and so with these things, and they change oil in the tractors and cars and things, and we'd empty them, but we'd save the cans, and these things would, Sometimes the metal roof on the barns would, expand. Well, they'd contract at that temperature, not expand. So you hear all sorts of noises. So I'm used to hearing noises and not necessarily assuming there's an active agent in the area from which the noise emanates, causing it. I'm stopped up. That's life. So the good Jake from Varmint Control came out today. Earlier, he came about a little bit after noon. And there, we had no beasts in the traps. So I think he smeared some more peanut butter on a couple of the plates. And, he opined, and I certainly agree with him, that as long as it's really, really cold like this, there's not going to be much activity. And in all likelihood, we're not going to catch anything until it warms up here either, well, since they don't come out and check on the weekend, which means they don't keep the traps open on the weekend. We might get some activity and catch some next week. Now, he also added that he's not catching any raccoons at all here in the last couple of days, 3 days, you know, where he has traps set. Okay. So I said, how about, why can't you just leave this trap open, you know? What the hell, what am I hearing? I said, why can't you just leave this trap open on the weekend? There's something, I'm hearing something, but it's nothing that's visible. And I have all the heat, I only have one extra heater on, so it's not that. Okay. Enough of this. So I said, why can't you leave the trap open on the weekend? And he sort of, a little of this. I said, is it your company policy? He says, yes. And I said, is it your company policy because it's the government's mandate? And he said, yes. And I said, is that the state government or the federal government? He says, it's the state government. He says, different states have different regulations about how often these traps have to be checked. He worked in Minnesota for a while, a few years back. And he says they have a thing that you only have to check the traps every 48 hours, which meant that you could, leave them set over the weekend, given the way you define 48 hours. And he said Ohio is every 24 hours, okay, which means that you can't. He says now if you want to pay extra for day, come out on the weekend. And I said no. And then he said, do you know how to set these traps? And I said, I didn't. Suffice it to say that I now know how to set these traps. And he says, these are our traps. I said, I know, I'm not going to destroy them or injure them. I won't, if I get something, I'm not going to shoot the thing and break a wire. He says, essentially, I'll just, make the trap so it won't open or catch anything when I leave on Friday. Says, and then whatever you do between time I leave and time I come back out on Monday, it doesn't matter. I said, fine. So I said, we have an understanding. Because I don't want him to get in trouble, and, he's not breaking the law. Nor am I, because, I'm simply checking that trap every 24 hours. Realistically, I don't think we have any chance until Sunday night. Possibly Saturday night. Okay, enough of that. I'm not going to moan and groan to you about how well, actually, it's not a matter of moaning and groaning. Things are getting better, so I don't want to bug that. But my leg radicular pain is getting better through various means, not involving a lot of pharmacology either, so good. God works in mysterious ways. I wandered on to, I've been watching old episodes of Columbo, which is this great detective series. So that's just an aside. So I wandered on to YouTube this afternoon, and I found, one of my favorites, Gail Crabtree. She was doing a live stream. She actually does the live stream very well. A lot of people don't do the live stream format very well. What the hell am I hearing clicking and dropping and popping? Well, we'll figure that out after I get off this. And so I participated a bit in her live stream, and Gail's an interesting individual. And so subscribers and live stream participants. I mean, but I don't know. I'm not saying I'm interesting so much, but I'm saying that Gail has a certain number of physical disabilities. Well, I wouldn't call them disabilities, but she's she accommodated to them, and so the people that watch her also tend to have these similar things where they have to forge forward and deal with them. And it's interesting to hear how these folks devise strategies to deal with these problems. It's always good to hear, see how the other half lives, so to speak. And it's good. It's enlightening. She does this every Wednesday afternoon Eastern time, around about 2 or 3, and so that was good. We were talking actually toward the end. We were talking about parents being with children. Now, of course, that's all age dependent, but let's say children in general, when they're getting medical care or dental care. It started out with dental care, and I finally decided, oh, do I want to get in this can of worms? So I said, in my experience, it's been more dependent on the parent than the child. Now, some kids are very, very, even at a young age, are very willing to get along without their parent, and quite honestly, a number of them are better behaved without their parent around. And I said, in our experience, it's generally been depends on the parent more than the child. Well, that can go either way. I mean, you can have a very laid back, sensible parent and an hysterical child, or you can have an hysterical child and a very hysterical parent. I mean, generally, if you remove the hysterical parent from the hysterical child, you can get the hysterical child in control by various means. I'm talking about serious procedures. I'm not talking about some little needle stick vaccination thing, okay? We're talking about like, oh, this might affect your life type stuff, okay? I don't basically deal with the other stuff, or didn't. I'm not saying it's not important, I'm just saying I didn't deal with it. And I started to get all this emotional horse shit about it, like people do. Oh, Lord, just don't get me started on that. Anyway, I'll round up by telling you a story, and I love to tell you stories, as you kind of know. I spent a lot of time at Children's Hospital as a medical student, and as a surgery resident. I spent 4 months as a first-year surgery resident at Children's Hospital in various capacities, and I spent 5 or 6 months as a medical student at Children's Hospital. So I spent a fair amount of time at Children's Hospital. And it got to the point where they knew that I kind of knew what I was doing. And so they'd sort of leave me on my own. Okay, so one night I was a first-year surgeon. I was one of my last 2 months there. I spent my last 2 months at Children's Hospital in general surgery when I was a surgery resident. And I was in the ER, I was in the ER because I was on call that night, and they called me down to the ER. This kid had ripped open his thigh. I mean, he had really laid it open in a big flap. Now, he was a big 11-year-old. He was a big 11-year-old. And he had been out on his dirt bike, he had been biking, dirt biking, pedaling around. And of course, he'd fallen, and he'd almost avulsed his entire anterior thigh, right in his anterior thigh here, okay, like all the way here, okay. So you had a wound of entrance down here by the knee, and then you had this undermined flap. So you had a hole about this long, but yet once you got in there and got sticking stuff in there and so forth. Now this is after I dealt with the mother. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So I said to the mother, first, do you want to be here? No, I said to the kid first, do you want your mother to be here? He says, well, I could see her looking at this thing, and this is a big, bloody, there was a lot of blood. And I could see she was getting ready to throw up. I said, do you want to be here? She said, well, I probably should. I said, you don't have to be. He's already told you don't have to be. He's a big, he's a big, sensible 11-year-old. I mean, he really was. I mean, if you'd had, if there's been a 7-year-old, well, actually, if it'd been a 7-year-old kid, you'd have taken this kid up to the operating room and done it in the operating room, put him to sleep. But this kid was a very reasonable, rational guy. I mean, this guy, he's like the perfect patient, perfect pediatric patient, hell, perfect patient of any age, He didn't get hysterical. He was hurting, but he didn't make a big deal about it, more than was necessary. And, gosh, but no, normally, and nowadays even probably with him, you'd take him up in the operating room and do it. But, operating room, they were in the room free, and here we are, and we're in this room, and good patient, and the mother's amenable. I said, well, you can say if you want, or if you don't want. I said quite honestly to her, I said, it's going to be a lot easier if you go outside. And she did. And so we fixed it. Well, I basically fixed it. I mean, a nurse came in occasionally to help me, but I basically did the whole thing on my own. We got to irrigate the hell out of these things because you got all sorts of crap and dirt that gets up in there. And even if you irrigate everything, you're still going to have more crap and dirt left up in there. So you have to put drains in. Okay. Well, I think I misled you at first. It wasn't just a little slit. I mean, there was actually it was actually like an actual flat. Okay. You can kind of put your hands and lift it up and looking around. Okay. So I misled you at the start. Sorry. But, and you can get up there in tools and pick gravel and crap out, all right. But what was great is you knew that he hadn't lost the skin. And it was a very thick skin flap. It wasn't like he just torn off a little thing. So if you could get this meat above to seat down to the meat below and drain out any pus or infection and sort of solidify, and then you could sew up the edge, you're going to have a good result. And I just love this kind of stuff. I mean, I just love this kind of stuff. I love the debris burn wounds and the eschars, and you'd go under the eschar and you'd peel it up. It was like a giant scab. Always try to get off in one piece, So I said, I'm going to stick you with a lot of stuff that's going to make you numb. You're going to feel me pulling on you, but it shouldn't hurt. If it hurts, you tell me, I'll give you more stuff. He was I'll tell you, I was impressed. This kid was very, very rational. I basically think basically think now that he wanted to get home and eat his supper, or dinner, or whatever people call it nowadays. We always call it supper. And it took about 45, 50 minutes, because I was in there on my own. I mean, it's not, I am not technically all that adept, but I know what I have to do, and I know when I'm doing it wrong. So, you know, you had to pick. You didn't want to leave stuff behind, so you put a couple of these drains, rubber drains in, you know, and then and so you close it, but not too tight. You know, and you leave things where you can pull the drains out, so then we wrapped it, and I gave the mother a lot of instructions about what to do. I said basically, just let him be for 2 days, and of course, massive, you know, large antibiotics, oral antibiotics. He didn't need IV antibiotics. I think we gave him some IV antibiotics there, but I said, come back here in the clinic and explain to them, and they'll pull the drains out a little bit, and if they think it's obviously infected, then they'll reopen it. So, you know, well, I was almost at the end of my stint there at Children's, but I did find out a couple months later that this kid had come back, and he was fine, and they had kept all the appointments, and they'd fine. So obviously, so that's a lot to keeping all the appointments to the parent, and to this kid's fortitude. You know? So a lot of it depends on the patient. So I mean, that was a blessing. I mean, you know, you could have just as easily gotten one of these. Well, as I said, you could have easily just gotten one of these. Ah! Well, then you would have had to wait for an operating room. But we didn't have to do that. So that's my story for today on this very cold January day. It was like a poem. It's my story for the day on this cold January day. So I'll say bye-bye, YouTube.